Hi, everybody. I want to welcome you to the Resident and Family Support Council meeting that we hold on the second and the fourth Tuesday of every month. My name is Lee Moriarty, and I am the Deputy State Long-Term Care Ombudsman. And we bring these meetings to you so that we can help empower people with information. What we also do is we make sure that we record these meetings because we understand that not everybody can be a part of these meetings at the time that we hold them. So we do record them and we put them on YouTube. And I know we've got Stephen. I think Stephen, I'm not sure if he's joined yet or not, but he will start to put the links for everything into the chat so that you can access our YouTube page as well as our Facebook page. On our Facebook page is where we do a lot of the advertising for these meetings, but you can also always email me, and I'll put my email in the chat as well, because you can always email me and I'll make sure that you get on the invite list. Because we really do have some great topics, such as today's topic. Before we get into today's topic, I do want to make sure that I just do a shout out to the Illinois Pioneer Coalition. You see that's underneath my name. It's not my name. It says Illinois Pioneer Coalition because they actually let us use their Zoom account to be able to conduct these meetings. At the State Ombudsman's Office, we don't have a Zoom account. So the Illinois Pioneer Coalition, which is a person-directed advocacy group throughout Illinois that really promotes teaching long-term care communities how to provide person-directed events and practices in their communities. So we want to just give them a shout out for allowing us to use their Zoom. So with that, many times we've talked about people getting discharged from their long-term care community when they don't want to be discharged. And we refer to those as involuntary discharges. And that could be a very upsetting situation for people because they want to live in the community and all of a sudden they're being told that they can't live there anymore and people get nervous about it. But just to reiterate before we get into that is the only way that you can be told that you need to move out of the home is if your health is improved, if you're a danger to yourself or other people, if your needs are not being met, if you haven't paid the bill, or if the facility closes. So those would be the only reasons why you would be, that a long-term care facility community would ask you to leave the community. But we recognize that many times people also want to leave the long-term care community. They some event might have brought them to living in a nursing home, for example, and they don't want to live there anymore. And then they feel stuck. How do I get out? What do I do? And so this is what this presentation is about today. We're going to be talking about this class action suit that happened and what that's all about. And we brought two amazing people on board to have that conversation with us today, Sara Cohen and Andrea Rizor from Equip for Equality, who actually were part of they worked for Equip for Equality, which was part of that class action suit that brought this against the state of Illinois to be able to make sure that people can leave the community when they want to leave the long-term care community. So Andrea and Sara, first of all, do you want to talk a little bit about Equip for Equality and what that's all about and a little bit about who you are?
Sure. Thank you so much. My name is Andrea Rizor, and I am working with Equip for Equality. We are the state's protection and advocacy system for Illinois. There is a P&A, they call them, in every state. And our mission is to advocate for the rights of people with disabilities, provide free legal services throughout all of Illinois, ranging from community integration efforts, special ed rights, prison advocacy, and we kind of run the gamut on that. So I'll let Sara introduce herself.
Yes, my name's Sara. I am a fellow, so I'm at Equip for Equality recently, and also an attorney. So I've started in the past in the fall, and I've been working with a lot of people on these cases where they want to move out of their nursing facilities. So Andrea thought might be useful to have me help with this presentation. So I'm happy to be here and get to talk with you all.
Well, welcome, you guys. We really do appreciate you being here. And I know as through the Ombudsman program, we reach out to Equip for Equality many times for assistance with legal services. So we appreciate who you guys are. And we appreciate what you've done with this amazing that you're going to be starting to talk about how people can leave the long-term care community if they have that desire to leave. So if you want to go ahead and take it away, that would be great.
Great. I'll go ahead and share the PowerPoint on my screen here. I've actually never shared on Zoom, so please bear with me here. Are we looking at the presentation, folks?
No, not yet. What you would do is, do you see on the bottom, that bottom arrow share?
It says
There you
I am
go.
sharing my screen.
It looks
Yep.
like it's starting. It says
Excellent.
but we don't see anything yet. It just says has started screen sharing. So we don't see
Okay.
anything on it yet.
You see a black screen?
Yeah, just a black screen.
Huh. Well, it shows on mine that it says you are sharing, and then it says stop share.
Okay, well, why don't you, there it goes. We got it.
Yeah.
We got it.
You got it now?
Yep, we got it.
Excellent.
It.
Okay. All right. Maybe the internet on my end is a little slow. Anyway, I really appreciate all of you here today listening to us. We want to talk a little bit about 3 of the big lawsuits, class actions in Illinois, and because they are instrumental in our discussions about getting folks out of the institutions. So I'm going to start off with talking about a little bit about the Americans with Disabilities Act. The ADA was signed in 1990. It was a result of the disability rights movement. Similar to other movements with civil rights, folks with disabilities were protesting, demonstrating, writing letters, attending hearings, testifying, and through a few decades of that advocacy, the ADA was passed. And in the actual Americans with Disabilities Act, there are findings from Congress. You can find those. These are just a few of them.
Can I interrupt for
Sure.
1 second? I think your screen has frozen. We're still seeing the opening slide. Very briefly, if you want to maybe turn sometimes we've learned that if you turn your camera off, if your internet is unstable, it can sometimes make it a little bit better.
Okay.
There we go.
See, am I still sharing?
Now we got slide 2.
Great. All right, great. I do not know how to enlarge the screen, but I'm just going to go with the small one for now.
Yep.
It's
Yep,
like a
we're
small
good with
thumbnail.
it. We can see it pretty good, so don't worry.
Okay, great. So, actually, I wonder if, well, I'm not gonna mess around with it. Okay. Actually, I have to. This is so embarrassing. I apologize, everyone. I can't move the slide now.
Yeah, it looks like you're frozen. Are you on camera still? If you could get yourself off camera.
No, I took myself off camera.
Okay, it's still showing your picture.
I'm gonna try to present the presentation from my end.
Oh, that would be great, Sarah. And then
Okay,
Andrea, you
great.
can just tell her when
Thank
to
you,
advance
Sara.
the slides.
Okay.
That would be perfect.
Great.
Okay.
We're okay with technical difficulties. We get these things all the time. We understand what happens. We are a very understanding group of people because we're all about trying to get information, and how we can get it is just, that's what we love about these meetings.
That's true.
Okay.
Yeah.
Andrea, I think it needs you to stop screen sharing first for me to start.
I can try to.
Did it stop sharing? I might have to get out and try to get back in.
Oh, okay.
Okay, I'm gonna stop everybody sharing, so then don't worry,
Oh,
Sarah.
thank you. Thank you.
And I can go ahead and, okay, so if I get, I'm just gonna have to probably share something. Do you want to stop other, yes, and then I'm just gonna put up the opening slide, share that, okay. Now I should be able to stop this share, and then you should be able to share yours.
Okay.
Hold on, I gotta stop the share.
Okay.
Okay, now try it.
Mm, no, that's not working. Oh, wait. Okay, I think.
Yep, it says you're starting to share. We're seeing the dark screen and we got it. Okay, now you just need to put it in presentation mode.
Yes.
If you click on the bottom, right, yeah, perfect.
Thank you.
There you go. Okay, now did we lose her? You know what? These things happen. We get it. Okay, I'm looking to see if we've lost her.
Okay, I am back.
Okay.
Yay.
Hi,
Yay.
everyone's patience. All right, well, I'm just gonna move through it. These are really important findings from Congress. It talks about segregation, segregation perpetuating assumptions that people are incapable or unworthy of participating in community life. These are things that Congress had heard from the disability community, had witnessed, had concerns about, and this was the reason why one of the many reasons why the ADA was passed. Next slide. I wanted to put this out here for folks to look at. This is one of the provisions under the ADA, and it just simply puts it in black and white for folks to see the prohibition of discrimination. And we'll get to a little bit more further discussion of that on the next slide, Sarah. So one thing to know is that the Department of Justice issues federal regulations and enforces Title II of the ADA. This is another provision within federal regulations that I think is also important because it talks about not only discrimination, but it says that the states and local governments have to provide services in the most integrated setting. Go ahead, next slide, Sarah. And I'm going to skim mostly over this because I think this is probably a refresher for a lot of you. But it's the building of the information so that when we talk about the class actions, the little bit of that foundation that is rooted in the ADA and the federal regulations.
But I think this is useful information for us because I don't know if everybody is fully aware of why this happened. And one of these things that we really try to make sure that people are aware of is that we should be empowered. And
Yes.
so that the fact that people were empowered to do something about something is really an amazing thing, and it had such a large effect on many.
Yes, this was a result of the disability community. Advocates within the disability community, folks with disabilities, climbing up those steps on their own, even though they use wheelchairs and things like that. It was very powerful in the demonstrations and resulted in a very powerful federal law. I think what's interesting that, a lot of folks probably have heard of Olmstead, but, we have to be reminded that it was not a class action lawsuit. Olmstead was two women who were stuck in a state-operated hospital down, south in Georgia, that were unable to get out. They were deemed appropriate for community placement. So the hospital itself was saying, these women, yes, they're appropriate, but there was no way for them to be served in the community. They both sued under the ADA's integration mandate. Go ahead, next slide, Sarah. And what the Supreme Court held was that unjustified institutionalization is discrimination under the ADA. And so in the first few slides, we talked about discrimination, and you could see the provision under the ADA that prohibited discrimination. And the federal regulations talk about community setting, let's say least restrictive setting. But now there is case law interpreting the ADA saying that segregation is in of itself discrimination. The court talked, there's three elements under the Olmstead decision, and these are things that if cases move to litigation that is talked about, and that is where the court has said that community-based services need to be appropriate. The affected person does not oppose community services. And I pause because it does not talk about guardians. It talks about the affected person. And three, services need to be reasonably accommodated within the state's resources. And that's important too. States are supposed to have Olmstead plans and things like that. And so let's move on to the next slide, Sarah. So I just want to briefly talk about some of the three big class action lawsuits in Illinois that involve the community integration provisions. And the reason, and I put a video in there from Equip for Equality. If some of you know Barry Taylor and some others at Equip for Equality, they're featured in this. But it talks about why was it so necessary to sue the state in these three lawsuits. And it was because the folks in the disability community, they were trying to get the state to comply with Olmstead and the Supreme Court decision, but there was little movement. And so folks in the disability community felt like the only way to see change and to reduce the overuse of institutionalization in Illinois was through litigation. Next slide. So the first one we won't talk about much because I'm not sure that many of you know folks or are folks with developmental disabilities, but one of the first three lawsuits was Liggis v. Eagleson, and that was a class action on behalf of folks with intellectual disabilities and developmental disabilities. That was settled under a consent decree in 2012, and it remains subject to court oversight. You might see some of that information through the newspapers. There's been some activity in the last year. Next slide. The second one that I want to talk about today, these are not in any particular order, but I thought most people might be interested in Colbert just because it's a larger class. Colbert is another lawsuit that was filed, or class action, certified as a class in 2008, over 16,000 class members. And it includes folks with physical disabilities and mental illness. Physical disability is actually pretty broad. So it's not what you would traditionally think of, someone who uses a wheelchair, but it is much more broader than that. And it's looking at the definition used in the Americans with Disabilities Act. Colbert is under a consent decree still, and it remains under court oversight. Next slide. I just wanted to list a few things in case folks were interested about the consent decree. And it talks about the decree has some requirements in there that folks receive an opportunity to live in the least restrictive environment appropriate to their needs. That means with supports, obviously. It requires the state to develop community-based services and housing supports for folks who are moving out of nursing facilities. And it did require the appointment of an independent court monitor who we have, and her name is Catherine Dupree. She is, I think, the second court monitor, and she was appointed about 1.5 years ago. Next slide. I did some math on it. It's been about 5,000 people have moved into the community under the decree today. It was interesting that there was a state cost neutrality assessment where it did show that the state saves money by serving folks in the community instead of nursing facilities. And then here's a link where if you're interested, you could look at more fact sheets about Colbert and like our complaint. You could look at the complaint and other things like the implementation plan for FY25 is posted up there. Next slide. I know I'm moving fast, so I do apologize. I want to make sure there's time because there's an interview after Sarah's and I presentation. I want to make sure that there's time for that. The last piece I'm going to talk about here is Williams. It's it's a smaller class, but it is very impactful. And this is for folks, this is a class action that was filed on behalf of folks who live in specialized mental health rehab facilities. Sometimes you might hear it short as SMRFs. They're also known as institutions for mental disease. But Illinois, you'll hear more about SMRFs. These are where folks with mental illness are residing in institutions that are similar to nursing facilities. The consent decree was approved in 2010 and it remains under court oversight. Next slide. So at the beginning of the consent decree, I talked about over a 5-year period, people who did not oppose community services were supposed to be transitioned to the community. It requires that residents like Colbert be informed of community-based options and receive individualized assessments and supports and transition services so that they can live in the community in the least restrictive setting. Permanent supportive housing is considered most integrated, and so what that is just an apartment in the community with supports brought into that individual versus, let's say, supported living that some people may be familiar with, where the whole building is folks with disabilities. So it's just like any person in the community in an apartment, and the supports are brought to them. The Williams, it was there's some savings in here because when folks are served in the community, there's a federal dollar match. Whereas if the person's in the IMDs, it's 100% state funded because there's an exclusion. It's called an IMD exclusion, where states are not able to draw down federal funds for folks in IMDs who are there long term. Go ahead, next slide, Sarah. Again, I added up the numbers. The state has reported about 4,000 class members having moved into the community under the decree. And one of the newer programs is called the front door diversion. Those numbers of folks who were diverted are not included in the 4,000. Front door diversion reaches probably a lot more people, and it prevents folks from ending up in the SMRFs and getting stuck.
Yeah, so just to explain that front door diversion, it literally is a diversion, correct? Like it's instead of the person has been assessed and a SMRF, a specialized mental health rehab facility, they've been assessed to go into that home, but somebody's come in and said, you know what, there's other services. They do not need to go into that facility, that institutional environment. They can stay home. And they can get supportive services. So it literally is a diversion, correct?
Yes. And the intent is to what they call close the front door, divert everyone into the community so that, there are no more people coming into the SMRFs. That's the goal and the dream. And Sarah's going to talk more about like the details, the nitty gritty of, okay, what does all that mean? Right? What does this mean for me? If I wanted to use the Colbert program or I wanted to benefit from front door, how would I do that? And so she's going to go into that a little here.
Yes. Yeah. Thanks. And yeah, like we said, this front door diversion program is a diversion. It's so people who have mental illness and are assessed and deemed eligible for SMRF placement can receive front door diversion services instead in the community. And it's actually they actually also offer housing support. So if you don't have like a stable place to live when this happens, a lot of people are like in a crisis. I think the referrals usually happen when someone is in the hospital receiving behavioral health services, and they can provide kind of similar supports actually to the Williams program and the Colbert program, what's called like wraparound supports in the community.
Explain what FDDP referral is, or FDDP is. What does that stand for?
Yes, FDDP stands for Front Door Diversion Program.
Oh, okay, sorry, that's there. And just as a
No, it's-
reminder for the SMRF, the Specialized Mental Health Rehab Facility. So people
Exactly.
understand it would be that nursing home that specializes in the care for people with mental illness.
Yeah, and you you know, if there's kind of a strict screening process for people who are deemed you know, possibly needing a SMRF placement, and it's at 2 levels of screening. I see there's a question. Andrea, do you think we should take it now or wait till the end?
Lee, what do you think? You usually know.
Yeah, I would say because one of the things, it said on your slide was that Maximus does the screening. And that was one of the questions in there. Why does Maximus do the screening and not state workers? Do you guys know the reasons for that?
Yeah. So there's been a change. For some of you who gone through some of these programs, the outreach and assessment. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm going to take back on the front door. Maximus is used as part of the new PASSAR system. So the state was required to implement a PASSAR program. PASSAR is under nursing, under the Federal Nursing Home Care Act. It requires that folks who have mental illness or developmental disabilities be screened out to make sure that they're served that they're not they don't get stuck in nursing homes. Well, Williams required something similar, even though these are not nursing facilities, and because they don't get the Medicaid dollars, there's another process that was developed, and Maximus is just the chosen contracted entity by the state to do these initial screens. And so it's called a SMRF assessment, and it does an assessment on eligibility. Maximus is fairly quick on this. I think the turnaround time is usually a day or two, and then the prime agency or the front door diversion agency gets involved very quickly also. And so it's just one entity doing all of the SMRF screens. Hopefully that answers the question.
And how often is it used? I'm not sure. I'm thinking, yeah, so it's done. This is done every time, isn't?
Every time a person is going to be referred to a SMRF, they have to have a Maximus screen. So no SMRF can admit anyone without that person first having a Maximus screen. And when you get the Maximus screen, it triggers the discussion of front door diversion.
Great.
Right.
Good information.
It's also useful just to know, because even if like you maybe haven't been like officially referred to a SMRF yet, but this might be an opportunity to get these resources. So I think that's why we're sharing it. Technically, people staff in community mental health centers can also make these referrals. Managed care organization like case managers and in the state operated mental health facilities as well. So let's see. I'll go to the next slide. So this is a little more about the services. Oh, is it paused on other feet? Oh, there we go. Okay.
Yeah, it's being very slow.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, jump in if there are issues. So these are just short list of the services that are available to people when they want to participate in the Williams program or the Colbert program. So the evaluations, it's done now by that same contractor that we were just talking about, Maximus. They do these evaluations or assessments when you have indicated that you want to move into the community. And you can actually request these every 90 days. You can request a new assessment, I believe. once you've requested that assessment and had the assessment, well, I'll talk about the process a little later, but some of the things that you can receive to help support you when you're eventually able to move into the community are assistance finding housing, and then also some people are eligible for a bridge subsidy, which can help covers your rent. And there's also designated transition funds. So those would cover like moving costs, furniture, if there's any fee. And then long-term case management and coordination. This would include medication management and just like coordinating with your various providers in the community, community supports such as personal care and nursing. There's also, I think, if you need assistive or adaptive technology that's available to you, employment supports, including supportive employment, so help if you would like to work and need help to be able to do that. And then this financial entitlements and identification, I believe that's the SOAR program. So it's like SSI, SSDI outreach, access and recovery. So they'll help you if you need help getting access to those benefits. And this case management and supports will, I believe they can last, I think as long as you want. I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, Andrea, but they're at least required to, I think, for 18 months after you transition.
Yeah, so we're still working out these details. The comprehensive program, there's a policy that class membership is 18 months. Class member case coordination benefits are 18 months. You still remain a class member forever, though. And under the CTI program, if you were to transition out with your managed care organization, there is no like 18-month policy or anything. So those are still up in discussions, but you still a class member with no time limits there.
Okay.
So if I could just ask a question here then. So what you're saying is if I'm somebody that was able to move out of the long-term care community, it was through a Williams, through the Williams program, and I get these services, they'll only be in place for me and for 18 months unless my managed care organization can pick up the services?
No, not quite right. So the
Okay.
goal of the, let's say Williams and Colbert transition program is to give you that intense case coordination. Like, let's get a DOORS home services referral submitted. Let's make sure that you have your state ID and your birth certificate for the landlord. Let's get your rent application in. Let's get you security deposit. So that case coordination is pretty intense at the end when you're doing that last minute with the transition. And then what they're supposed to do is have a service plan of supports that are long-term supports in the community. And the goal has always been, how do we then transition out of the Williams-Colbert transition, intense case coordination, to just services that are already in the community? The reason why there isn't like a policy under the managed care CTI transition program is because those supports that are transitioning you are the ones that will be your long-term supports. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. And we've got one of the questions that I see you did answer was about appeals, and if you had a right to be able to appeal, and you said yes, that you can. And if you want to talk about that just for a minute.
I think we'll get. We don't have a slide on that, but we can also skip ahead, I guess.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then also we'll talk about, I think someone has, if you don't like the services, there will be a grievance process, but we'll also talk about that, I think, at the same time that we talk about appeals.
Great.
So this is kind of more about the process, but also just since we did the overview of like the lawsuit and the consent decrees, these are the requirements for you to be a class member. So if you're unsure, these are the things you would have to be, the requirements. The first one is living in a Cook County nursing home or living in a SMRF, and that's anywhere in the state. The second one is you want to transition to the community. And the third one is you are on Medicaid or Medicaid eligible. So if that applies to you, then yay, you're a class member. So everyone is supposed to receive procedurally outreach from that entity we mentioned, Maximus, when they're first admitted. So within 70 days of admission, and then also annually. But you also have the right to request outreach or assessment at any time. So let's say you're you weren't really thinking about living in the community before, you can, and you change your mind, you can request assessment at a later time. And like I said before, I think you can request a new assessment every 90 days. So when you request an assessment, an initial assessment, I think that they will initiate it and are supposed to complete it within a few weeks of your request. I believe it's 14 days that they're supposed to initiate it. And then they're supposed to, or actually I think that's outreach, and then they're supposed to conduct the assessment within 45 days. Those timelines are a little confusing, but let's see, here's a little more. So like I said, the assessment is conducted by Maximus. And after the assessment, what happens is there is a prime agency that is assigned. These are assigned to individual nursing facilities. And I think that prior to this new system that Illinois implemented this year with Maximus, I think the prime agencies used to do the assessments as well as the transition planning. But once you are referred to a prime agency, then you can work on the service planning phase, which is where you develop a person-centered plan. So it should really take into account your goals and desires for living in the community and what kinds of supports you think you would need to do that and to thrive in the community. And then you also will go through the housing supports phase and work with the prime agency to find the housing support that you need, whether it's, actually finding a place and or the getting the subsidy to pay your rent, or getting help with supports that you would need in the home. And then this all should happen before, you move out of the nursing facility. Then there's the phase that would be the transition and implementing those community supports. So after that, you also will, have case management, as we said on the previous slide, case management and, continual contact with the agency that you're working with to make sure that everything is working for you. And there's probably likely to be, some bumps in the road. And it does take some time, which we will show on the next slide. Oh, oops, wrong screen. Here we go. So this does take a few months, and can sometimes take longer if there's delays. So that's why if if you're wanting to start the process, we usually encourage people to do it sooner rather than later. So here's some, suggestions we have to keep in contact with your transition team throughout the process. And don't be afraid to tell them what you need. If you are told that that you're not eligible to transition, you have a right to appeal. And facilities can't retaliate against you if you're deciding to participate in the Colbert or Williams programs. So if they do, there's a number that you can call, and you could also contact Equip for Equality. Yeah, like the last bullet point says, we are there definitely are obstacles that people encounter in this process. So if you are encountering those and want help, you can call us, and it's useful for us to know, so that we are able to learn and help call attention to these issues so that the state can improve the system. So we have, I don't know if we sent it out already, but we have a full, I think, 3-page flyer that talks about your rights as a Colbert class member. But here are some. So you can appeal almost any decision. If you haven't gotten you should get the final decision in writing, but if you haven't, you can request it in writing from the agency that you're working with and ask for appeal information and how you can go through that process. You can also file a grievance if you're unhappy with the services that your agency is providing. They have different internal grievance procedures, so it probably varies based on who you're working with. So after you transition and you're in the community, you're still a class member, and so you still have these rights. And okay, that's the wrong slide. If you have other issues or want information about your rights, you can call us at Equip for Equality, and we're happy to help. These are some contacts. The Maximus contact is if you have a question about where you are, basically, I think, in the stage of your evaluation or working with them. If you've had outreach but you haven't had an assessment yet, this is where you can contact. I think you can also try to contact them this way and request an assessment, but we're kind of figuring how that process works. We're kind of figuring that out, how that process works. EFE is Equip for Equality. That's the organization that Andrea and I work for.
And you can always reach out to the ombudsman, and we also can help make these connections.
Awesome.
We don't do the work like like Maximus does and the prime agencies do. We don't do those referrals, but we can give numbers. We can tell you how to contact and things like that. We will support people in that manner. So just to know.
Great, thank you. So these links, the prime agency assignments link, that is if you're in a nursing facility, and that is a spreadsheet that tells you what prime agency is assigned to your nursing facility. But remember, you won't be working with the prime agency until you've gotten the assessment with Maximus. and then have been referred to the prime agency to work on your service plan. And then this is another spreadsheet, the contact link, that has individual contacts for the different prime agencies. And then there is our contact information, which is also on the flyer that you should be getting. Okay, great. Well, I don't know if there are any other questions.
So one person did ask if this applies to people with physical disabilities.
I wasn't sure
yes,
if that was,
yes.
oh, sorry, go ahead, Sarah.
No, you can go ahead.
I wasn't sure if that question was directed to the Williams, Colbert, or Liggis.
Oh,
So let's just, why don't you take it by each?
Okay, so for Liggis, that benefits, those are programs in a class action that benefited people with intellectual disabilities and developmental disabilities. The Colbert is for people with physical disabilities and mental illness. And the third one, Williams, that is for folks with mental illness.
So for Colbert, is it physical and or mental, or is it, we have to have both?
Nope, it's and or.
And or, okay, and that's important to know. Yes, and there was a comment made about all the acronyms, and then this is a very acronym-y, if that's even a word, issue, because there's so many different entities that are involved in whenever you do this class action suit stuff and trying to figure out who's doing what, where, when, and how. So we do recognize a lot of those, and I think trying to make sure we're being cognizant about it, and sometimes these do roll off our thumbs, so we roll off the tongue, so we do apologize for that. Can you guys share these slides with me so that I can get them posted on our website? Because there's some things in there.
I shared also a 3-page flyer that Sarah talked about, a little more comprehensive of just focusing on navigating the process. And then I sent you also just a PDF version of the slides. We covered this so fast too. And some of the acronyms should be like an earlier slide. So as you try to digest it, it should be, most of that should be in there, but you have someone who's fantastic in the chat, like keeping up with us and going through those acronyms and explaining, here's what a prime is, or here's what this is. But yes, it is very acronym heavy, and trying to cover the 3 lawsuits in I didn't realize, but yeah, covering it in 30 or 40 minutes is just, it is a challenge. So appreciate everyone's patience. And I definitely want to have time for Bruce to talk with you, Lee. So however you want to move forward.
Yes, so Bruce, I don't know if you're still on the screen. I know you were on camera, if you want to get off camera. There we are, there's Bruce. Okay, so Bruce, you are someone who actually successfully transitioned out of a long-term care community through Colbert, correct?
Yes.
Can you tell me a little bit about what that experience was like for you?
Well, Colbert Williams, the whole consent decree is really deep. And the first thing I did is read about it. First thing I actually did is decided I didn't want to be in the nursing home anymore. For me, it wasn't very easy to figure out where I needed to go. I started with the nursing home, and the administrator, and they told me there was a sign on the wall. So I read the sign on the wall and got hold of, I believe it was Kenneth Young Center. And they, at that time, this was like 3 years ago, they're the ones that did the assessment. They were my prime agency. They did my assessment. They set up what they call a DON score. And that's very important to getting your services. The higher the DON score, I believe I got it right. The higher the DON score, the more chance of you getting more services. And then there comes the planning phase after you get the DON score, which is usually pretty quick. It's not, the assessment, if I remember right, was pretty darn quick. They had to do it within like 15 days. So they did the assessment, and then the planning stage, finding a place to live, finding a place to live, getting furniture, getting caregivers was a big deal. That took a while. And it's going to take a while for all that. Once you're approved by the prime agency and everything, and now I guess it's Maximus. I'm not sure what their role is, but once you get approved, those things take a long time. During
Services.
Services. During
Yeah.
the time, the nursing home kind of fought against me moving out quite a bit. And the best thing that I could tell anybody is study up on Colbert Williams and be your own advocate. And man, yeah, I mean, I can't explain how much you need to be an advocate, because there's a lot of roadblocks sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And it gets frustrating after a while. It took me about a year to move out of the nursing home, which was a long time.
Yeah. And I know I met you while you were in the nursing home, Bruce. I mean, and you had been attending these meetings for quite a long time. And I know that you had a long, tenuous road with this. But I think that patience was really an important piece, because sometimes it felt like it was very easy to be impatient about it, because it felt like, is really anything moving here at all? Is this ever really going to happen for me? But you are the proof that it can and it will happen, but it may take a long time.
There's a lot of moving parts involved. Like going out and finding your place to live. I mean, I actually went out and looked at apartments. Because you don't want to go somewhere that you might not enjoy, and be right for you. And Kenneth Young was my prime agency, and they helped me do all this stuff and set up my house and buy my furniture and talk to me about bridge subsidy, and all the things involved. And so I've been out of the nursing home about 3 years. Time went by quick. And I live in the community. I got a very nice place I'm living at. And the prime agency still follows me. They come twice a week. And
So twice a week, you have people that come to your apartment. They help provide services that you need to be able to continue to thrive and live well in your apartment.
Yes.
That's really great. And it's been 3 years now that you've been doing this.
3 years.
Yeah, you're an amazing success story. And I think it's important for people to understand that you need to persevere. You need to, like you said, get educated, be your own advocate. I think these are really great lessons and words for all of us to be hearing. Because many times I don't think people don't know what they don't know. How did you hear about the ombudsman, about the Colbert program to begin with? How did you hear about this?
I heard about it on a flyer. That was
Flyer.
Yes. They had a phone number to call. And I don't remember who exactly I got hold of in the beginning. I know I found out about the ombudsman program I think through there. And they helped me quite a bit through my transition period. Yeah, so I'm physically disabled, so it was kind of a, I don't want to say a rough time, but it was pretty involved. That's all I'm gonna say.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, I can only imagine how it did feel sometimes when you felt like, is this really ever going to happen for me? But the reality is it did happen for you. And how would you say your quality of life is now that living in the community versus living in the long-term care community?
Oh, my quality of life is really good compared to what I was. The nursing home was like, I want to say prison for me. And I had a lot of rebel from the nursing home because I was a outspoken advocate. And what I did in my free time is studied everything I could and learn the rules. And when the nursing home stepped out of line, I opened my mouth.
Which is what we all need to be doing. I see you got a cheerleader back there. Kathy is cheering away. She's like, yeah. Yes, because that's what you do need to do. And thank you for sharing your story. I think we hear about these types of things and then we wonder the reality of it and how does it play out. So Bruce, we appreciate you sharing your experience. You know, I also want to share, Bruce is such an advocate, such an empowered human being, that he's also on the Illinois Council. He's one of the, he's on the Illinois Council on Aging, on the Department on Aging now, as a great representative for somebody who has the lived experience that we're trying to do a better job for. So we do appreciate that, Bruce. I want to thank you.
One thing I want to add is I've worked on both sides now of the because I was working for NAMI for a while, so I was actually talking to people in nursing home to
Explain what NAMI is so that people know what that is.
NAMI is a National Alliance on Mental Illness, and when I was working for them, they actually, I was part-time. Now they have full-time people that go into the nursing homes. And they talk to the people in the nursing homes and tell them about the Colbert Williams plan. And eventually see if they would like to transition out. And then I guess now it's Maximus. They take over from there and do all the other work. Now my question is Trilogy and Kenneth Young still involved in this?
Is Trilogy and Kenneth Young? Andrea, I think you can answer that.
Yeah, so Maximus is taking over outreach and assessment. And the hope is that it will be more streamlined, that people will get outreached quicker, that assessments will be more like controlled, right? Because there's only one entity the state has to train and monitor and track. And it would be more consistent because it would be one assessment being applied. And then there's a handoff. Once that assessment is done by Maximus, it gets handed off to Trilogy, Kenneth Young Center to do the transition work. And we're hoping, the state is hoping, that by getting rid of those other duties, the outreach and assessment, that it will free up the prime agencies to do more work in the transition area and be more timely. And the court monitor did push the state, which agreed to continue paying the same amount to the prime agencies, even though those duties are no longer there, which we hope then those will be refunneled into the transition services.
Great. Thank you. Well, thank you very much. We're at 4 o'clock. First of all, I want to thank Sara and Andrea for being here and explaining this to us and helping us to be empowered with this. Even if you're not somebody who qualifies for any of these class members action suits that happened. We will be also putting in a list on our website of other housing resources. So just because you're not a class member doesn't mean if you want to leave the long-term care community that you're in, you still do have that right to be able to live in your least restrictive environment that you want to live in. So you can still leave your long-term care community, and they should be helping you. The long-term care community should be helping with discharge planning and discharge services for that to happen. One of the struggles can be, as Bruce alluded to, is finding that right housing for yourself. So that we'll be putting a list on our website of some resources for you. And so do work with your facility social worker. Tell them, while I might like it here, I don't want to live here the rest of my life. I want to live in the community. There are state supports. It was mentioned in the chat. There are waiver services for people that qualify that can be able to get assistance at home. That exists as well. Look at the Department on Aging's website for a lot of information regarding this. Reach out to your ombudsman if they're the person in the community that you live in currently that can help be able to give you resources. But the long-term care facility should be helping with discharge planning if this is your desire. It's not jail. It might feel like jail sometimes. It's not jail, and that's part of their responsibility. So I just really want to thank everybody. Bruce, thank you so much for joining this conversation and sharing your lived experience. We really do appreciate it. So thank you to everybody. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and I am going to end the recording right now.